Commander Taman rubbed his tired eyes as he stared at the endless starfield displayed on the main screen of Deep Space Station, Omega-7. The coffee in his mug had gone cold hours ago, but he barely noticed. 3 months of monitoring the outer rim had yielded nothing but cosmic dust and the occasional asteroid. The Galactic Empire's most distant outpost was supposed to be humanity's first line of defense against unknown threats, but lately it felt more like a prison of boredom. Massive station rotated slowly in the void, its dozen sensor arrays constantly sweeping the darkness beyond Imperial space. Taman had been stationed here for 2 years now, watching for signs of hostile alien activity that never seemed to come. The Empire's military expansion had been so successful that most species either surrendered immediately or fled to the far reaches of the galaxy. "Another quiet night in paradise," muttered Lieutenant Sangwoo from the communications station, his voice echoing in the dimly lit command center. The night shift was always the worst, just for officers monitoring sensors that rarely showed anything more exciting than a solar flare from a distant star. Sensor. Operator Ji-woo sat hunched over her console, her fingers occasionally tapping commands into the holographic interface. She was the youngest member of the team, fresh out of the Imperial Academy, and still held on to the naive hope that something interesting might actually happen out here. Her dark hair was pulled back in a regulation ponytail, and her eyes never left the swirling displays of sensor data. The station's artificial gravity hummed quietly beneath their feet, and the air recyclers whispered their endless mechanical breathing. Outside the reinforced windows, the stars looked cold and distant, like scattered diamonds on black velvet. Taman often wondered what secrets those stars held, what civilizations might be hiding in the darkness beyond their senses. Suddenly, Ji-woo's posture changed. She sat up straight, her hands flying across the controls as multiple alerts began flashing on her screen. "Commander, I'm detecting an unknown vessel at coordinates 127.4 by 89.2. She called out, her voice cutting through the quiet like a blade. The bridge erupted into activity. Sangwoo spun around in his chair, fingers already dancing across his communication array. The tactical officer, Lieutenant Yoonji, immediately began powering up the station's defensive systems. Red warning lights bathed the command center in an eerie glow. Taman was at Jiwi Station in 3 quick strides, his heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and dread. After months of nothing, they finally had contact with something unknown. He leaned over her shoulder, studying the energy readings that pulsed across her displays like electronic heartbeats. "What's the size estimate?" he asked, his voice steady, despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. "That's just it, sir," Ji-woo replied, her brow furrowed in confusion. "The energy signature suggests something massive, but the physical displacement is minimal. It's like looking at the power output of a dreadnought crammed into a space the size of a fighter craft." The sensor display showed a brief spike of energy that lasted exactly 4.7 seconds before vanishing completely. No trace remained, no exhaust signature, no jump wake, no gravitational disturbance. It was as if the vessel had simply blinked out of existence. "Duration of contact?" Taman asked, though he had already seen the timestamp, 4.7 seconds. "Sir, no jump signature, no energy discharge, it just ... disappeared." Ji-Wei-Yu's fingers continued working the controls, trying to enhance the readings, but there was nothing left to analyze at that moment. The command center doors slid open with a soft hiss, and Admiral Dong Hyen strode in, his polished boots clicking against the metal floor. He was a large man with graying hair and the kind of confidence that came from decades of easy victories. His uniform was perfectly pressed, decorated with ribbons from campaigns where the Empire had crushed primitive alien civilizations. "What's all the commotion about?" he demanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had never encountered a problem he couldn't solve with superior firepower. Admiral Taman began, "We've detected an unknown vessel that appeared briefly on our sensors before vanishing without a trace." Dong Haeon walked over to the sensor station, glanced at the displays for barely a second, then laughed dismissively. "Sensor ghosts, Commander. These old systems see phantoms in the void. I've seen it 100 times before." But Chief Analyst Haijin, who had been quietly working at her station in the corner, wasn't convinced. She was a brilliant woman in her 30s, with sharp eyes that missed nothing and a mind that could process complex data faster than most computers. She had been analyzing deep space phenomena for over a decade, and she had never seen readings quite like these. She pulled up the energy readings on her main display, her expression growing more troubled with each passing second. The data was impossible energy signatures that shouldn't exist. power outputs that defied known physics, and a technological signature that matched nothing in their extensive databases. "Sir," she said, her voice cutting through the Admiral's dismissive laughter, "these power signatures are unlike anything in our Imperial database. The energy output exceeded our largest dreadnoughts, yet the vessel appeared to be only frigate-sized." Admiral Dong Haiyan turned to face her, his expression shifting from amusement to irritation. "Impossible," he scoffed, his voice dripping with condescension. "The Empire has conquered 43 star systems. Our technology is supreme. We've encountered every major species in this sector, and none of them possess anything that could challenge our sensors." But Admiral Haijin persisted. "The energy patterns are completely foreign. This isn't just advanced technology, it's technology based on principles we don't understand." "File it as a malfunction," Dong Haiyan ordered sharply. "I won't have wild theories spreading panic among the crew. The Empire's dominance is absolute, and I won't tolerate suggestions otherwise." As the Admiral departed, his footsteps echoing down the corridor, the command center fell silent. The red alert lights dimmed back to normal, but the tension remained thick in the air. Haijin continued analyzing the data, her fingers working frantically across multiple displays as she tried to make sense of what they had witnessed. Tae-min approached her station, keeping his voice low. "What do you really think we saw out there?" Haijin looked up at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and fascination. "I think we just encountered something that makes our most advanced technology look like stone knives and bears. And Commander, I have a feeling this is just the beginning." Outside the station, the stars continued their eternal dance, but now they seemed different somehow, less empty, more full of possibilities both wonderful and terrifying. Something was out there in the darkness, something that had been watching them, and Taemin couldn't shake the feeling that their quiet little corner of the galaxy was about to become very loud indeed. The emergency communication alert pierced through the quiet hum of Deep Space Station Omega-7's command center at 0347 hours. Commander Taemin bolted upright from his chair, the exhaustion from 3 weeks of restless nights instantly forgotten. The main display flickered to life, showing the concerned face of Captain Soyoung from the patrol cruiser Iron Fist. "Commander Taemin, we've got a situation out here," Soyoung reported, her usually calm demeanor cracked with tension. Behind her, the bridge of the Iron Fist buzzed with activity as crew members worked frantically at their stations. "We encountered the same anomaly you reported 3 weeks ago. Same energy signature, same impossible appearance and disappearance." Taemin leaned forward, his knuckles white as he gripped the edge of his command console. "Location and circumstances." "Captain, Mining Colony Epsilon 12, sir. We were conducting routine patrol when our sensors detected the vessel, approximately 2,000 kilometers from the main asteroid processing facility. Duration was 4.2 seconds this time, but the energy output was identical to your readings." Chief Analyst Haijin, who had barely left her station since the first sighting, immediately began cross-referencing the new data with her existing files. Her fingers flew across the holographic displays, pulling up star charts, energy patterns, and tactical assessments. Dark circles under her eyes spoke of sleepless nights spent trying to solve an impossible puzzle. "Captain, did you get any visual confirmation?" Haijin asked, her voice hoarse from exhaustion. "Negative. It appeared on sensors only, just like before. But here's the disturbing part. The mining facility's security chief reported that their automated defense systems experienced a brief malfunction during the exact time frame of the sighting. All weapons platforms went offline for exactly 4.2 seconds. A chill ran down Taemin's spine. Whatever this unknown vessel was, it wasn't just observing, it was actively interfering with Imperial military systems. "Any casualties or damage?" "None, sir. Systems came back online automatically, but the timing is too precise to be coincidence." Over the next 48 hours, the reports continued flooding in. Lieutenant Jae-sung's reconnaissance squadron encountered the mysterious vessel near the massive shipyards of Kepler-7, where the Empire's newest dreadnoughts were under construction. The unknown ship appeared for exactly 3.8 seconds, during which time the shipyard's entire sensor network went dark. "It's like it wanted to get a good look at our new ships without being seen," Jae-sung reported during his debriefing. "Our squadron was on high alert, weapons hot, but by the time we locked onto its position, there was nothing there, just empty space and the taste of our own fear." Captain Minho from the border patrol vessel Stalwart reported a similar encounter near defense platform Zetanin, one of the Empire's most heavily fortified installations. The mysterious vessel appeared for 5.1 seconds, long enough for the platform's automated systems to detect it, but not long enough for human operators to respond. The platform's commanding officer, Major Unesio, said something interesting, Minho noted. She claimed the vessel's appearance triggered their first contact protocols automatically, as if their systems recognized it as a new species. But that's impossible. Those protocols are only activated when we encounter verified alien technology. Hyjin worked around the clock, her workspace becoming a maze of holographic displays, data streams, and tactical projections. She plotted each sighting on a three-dimensional map of Imperial space, watching as red dots appeared across their territory like a spreading infection. Empty coffee cups and half-eaten meal packs littered her desk, but she barely noticed. The pattern that emerged was both methodical and terrifying. The unknown vessel was systematically visiting every major Imperial installation, military bases, shipyards, research facilities, and strategic outposts. It was gathering intelligence on their defenses, their capabilities, and their weaknesses. It's not random, she told Commander Tamin, as they stood before the massive holographic display in the station's main briefing room. The 3D map of Imperial space rotated slowly, red dots marking each confirmed sighting. Look at the progression. It started with our outer rim defenses, then moved to our industrial centers, and now it's probing our core military installations. Tamin studied the map, his military training recognizing the pattern immediately. It's conducting a full reconnaissance sweep. Intelligence gathering before ... double quotes before what? Hyjin asked, though her expression suggested she already knew the answer. Before an invasion, Tamin said quietly. This is exactly what our forces do before attacking a new system. Map the defenses, identify key targets, assess military capabilities. The implications were staggering. For the first time in decades, the Galactic Empire was being surveyed by an unknown force with technology far superior to their own. Every military doctrine, every strategic advantage they possessed was being catalogued by an enemy they couldn't see, couldn't track, and couldn't fight. When Hyjin finally presented her findings to High Command, the reaction was swift and decisive. Fleet Admiral Sun Wu, a veteran of dozens of successful campaigns, authorized immediate military action. His weathered face showed no emotion as he studied the tactical display, but his hands trembled slightly as he signed the deployment orders. Battle, Group Taurus will intercept and destroy this threat, Sun Wu declared. Captain Duyon has served with distinction in the Outer Rim campaigns. If anyone can stop this phantom, it's her. Battle Group Taurus consisted of 3 heavy cruisers, the Thunderbolt, Lightning Strike, and Stormbringer. Each vessel carried enough firepower to level a small planet, and their crews were among the Empire's most experienced. Captain Duyan had earned her reputation fighting rebel forces in the Andromeda sector, where quick thinking and faster reflexes meant the difference between victory and death. Using Hyjin's calculations, the battle group positioned itself in perfect ambush formation at the predicted coordinates. The 3 cruisers formed a triangular pattern, with overlapping fields of fire that would catch any vessel attempting to escape. Weapons were charged to maximum power, shields raised, and every sensor array focused on the empty space where the unknown vessel was expected to appear. All ships report ready, Captain, reported Lieutenant Wu Jin from the Thunderbolt's tactical station. Maintain radio silence, Duyan ordered. When that ship appears, we hit it with everything we have. No warnings, no negotiations. This ends now. The minutes crawled by like hours. Every crew member was on edge, knowing they were about to face an enemy unlike any they had encountered before. The veterans remembered stories of the early expansion wars. When the Empire first encountered technologically advanced civilizations, those battles had been won through superior numbers and ruthless tactics. But this felt different. At exactly 1347 hours, the unknown vessel appeared. It materialized in the center of their formation, a sleek craft that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. For a split second, Duyon saw details that would haunt her for years, smooth whole lines that suggested incredible speed, no visible weapons ports, and a design philosophy completely alien to Imperial engineering. Fire. All weapons. Fire. Duyon, shouted Dot, but the ship was already gone. In the time it took her to give the order, the mysterious vessel had vanished, leaving 3 of the Empire's most powerful warships firing into empty space. Energy beams lanced through the void where their target had been, finding nothing but darkness and the bitter taste of failure. Sensor contact lost, reported the tactical officer, his voice hollow with disbelief. No jump signature, no energy trail. It's like it was never there. Captain Doyon stared at the empty space where the enemy had been, her mind struggling to process what had just happened in 30 years of military service. She had never encountered anything that could simply ignore their weapons and disappear at will. The unknown vessel had appeared in the middle of their formation, observed their positions and capabilities, then left without showing any concern for their threat. For the first time in her career, Doyon began to question everything she thought she knew about warfare. If the Empire's most advanced weapons couldn't even target this enemy, what hope did they have of defending against whatever was coming? Admiral Inho paced the bridge of the battlecruiser Dominator like a caged predator, his steel-gray eyes fixed on the tactical display showing the positions of his 12-ship task force. The massive warship's bridge hummed with barely contained energy as dozens of crew members worked at their stations, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of holographic displays. Gravity well generators are at full power, Admiral reported. Chief Engineer Kung Ho from his station near the rear of the bridge. Nothing larger than a fighter craft will be able to jump out of this system. We've got them trapped. The Dominator was the pride of the Imperial fleet, a kilometer-long beast of metal and weapons that had crushed rebellions across 3 star systems. Its gravity well generators were military-grade technology, powerful enough to prevent any known ship from entering hyperspace within a 50,000-kilometer radius. Combined with the 11 other vessels in Task Force Alpha, they had created an inescapable net. "Target zone is secure, sir," called out Lieutenant Commander Sajin from the tactical station. "All ships report ready status. If that phantom ship shows up, we'll have it locked down tight." Inho nodded grimly. After the embarrassing failure of Battlegroup Taurus, High Command had given him carte blanche to use whatever methods necessary to capture or destroy the mysterious vessel. He had handpicked his crew from veterans of the Centauri campaigns, warriors who had proven themselves in real combat against determined enemies. The bridge's main viewport offered a spectacular view of the Kepler-7 system, where massive shipyards stretched across space like mechanical cities. Half-completed dreadnoughts hung in construction frameworks, their hulls gleaming under the light of the system's twin suns. It was here that the Empire's military might was forged, and it was here that the unknown vessel had been spotted most recently. Predictive algorithms show an 87% probability of contact within the next 6 minutes, announced Chief Analyst Hyjin from her temporary station on the bridge. She had been transferred from Deep Space Station Omega-7 specifically for this mission, her expertise in tracking the mysterious vessel considered invaluable. "All hands, battle stations," Inho commanded. Throughout the task force, alarm klaxons sounded as thousands of Imperial personnel prepared for combat. Weapon systems charged with deadly energy, shield generators hummed to life, and fighter squadrons launched from carrier bays to patrol the perimeter. The minutes ticked by with agonizing slowness. Every sensor in the fleet was focused on the empty space where Hyjin's calculations indicated the vessel would appear. Inho had studied the previous encounters obsessively, looking for any weakness or pattern that could be exploited. This time would be different. This time they were ready. At exactly 15:42 hours, reality seemed to shimmer in the center of their formation. The unknown ship materialized like a dream becoming solid, its appearance so sudden that several crew members gasped audibly. It was unlike anything in the Imperial fleet's database, sleek and organic in design, with curves that flowed like liquid metal. The vessel was roughly half the size of their smallest cruiser, but it radiated an aura of power that made their massive warships seem crude by comparison. "Contact confirmed," shouted sensor operator Jongsu. "Vessel is holding position. No evasive maneuvers detected." The ship's hull was the most remarkable thing Inho had ever seen. It seemed to be made of some otherworldly metal that both absorbed and reflected light simultaneously, creating an almost hypnotic effect. No visible weapons ports, no engine exhaust, no external features that matched any known technology. It simply hung in space like a piece of alien art. "Gravity wells are holding," reported Kung Ho excitedly. "The target cannot jump to hyperspace." Inho stepped forward, his voice carrying the authority of decades of command. "Unknown vessel, this is Admiral Inho of the Galactic Empire. You are trespassing in Imperial space. Identify yourself immediately or be destroyed." For a moment there was only silence. Then the ship's response came through their communication system, transmitted in perfect Imperial standard, with no trace of accent or electronic distortion. The voice was calm, measured, and utterly unintimidated by the overwhelming firepower surrounding it. "Greetings, Admiral Inho. We are explorers from Earth. conducting a peaceful survey of this region. We mean no harm to your people. The bridge fell silent except for the quiet hum of machinery. Communications officer Dajin frantically worked her console, running the transmission through every analysis protocol in their database. Her face grew pale as the results appeared on her display. "Sir," she whispered, "Earth isn't in any of our stellar databases. Neither are these ... humans. The linguistic patterns are completely unknown, but somehow they're speaking perfect Imperial standard." Inho's mind raced. In 40 years of military service, he had encountered dozens of alien species. Some had been primitive, others technologically advanced, but all of them had been catalogued by Imperial scouts and xenobiologists. The fact that these humans were completely unknown suggested they came from far beyond the Empire's borders. "I don't care what rock you crawled out from," Inho snarled, his patience wearing thin. "You will surrender your vessel immediately for inspection and interrogation. Any attempt to resist will result in your destruction." The response came without hesitation, the voice maintaining its polite but firm tone. "We cannot comply with that request, Admiral. Our survey is complete. We will be departing now." "Like hell you will," Inho barked, his face flushing with anger. No alien had ever dared to refuse a direct order from an Imperial admiral. "All ships, weapons hot. Prepare to fire on my command." Throughout the task force, massive particle cannons swiveled toward the unknown vessel. Energy weapons charged, with enough power to vaporize a small moon. Missile tubes loaded with antimatter warheads that could crack a planet's crust. The combined firepower of 12 Imperial warships focused on a single, small target. "Target locked, Admiral," ported Sejin, all weapons ready to fire. Inho raised his hand, ready to give the order that would obliterate the mysterious vessel and its occupants. But in that moment, something impossible happened. The human ship simply vanished. Not the gradual fade of a jump to hyperspace. Not the energy discharge of advanced cloaking technology. One moment it was there, solid and real, and the next it was gone as if it had never existed. The targeting computers lost lock instantly, their displays showing nothing but empty space where the enemy had been. "Contact lost," Zhongsu shouted. "No energy signature, no jump wake, nothing. Impossible." Kung Ho screamed from his station. "The gravity wells are still active. Nothing can jump out of this system." Inho stared at the empty space where the human vessel had been, his mind struggling to process what had just happened. The Empire's most advanced technology, their most powerful weapons, their most experienced crews, all rendered useless by an enemy that could simply ignore the laws of physics. "Sir," Dajin called out, her voice shaky, "I'm detecting massive gravitational anomalies throughout the system. It's like the fabric of space itself was ... twisted." "Scan the entire system," Inho ordered desperately. "Full sensor sweep. They have to be hiding somewhere." For the next 6 hours, Task Force Alpha conducted the most thorough search in Imperial naval history. Every asteroid was scanned, every gas cloud investigated, every possible hiding spot examined with military precision. They found nothing. The human vessel had vanished as completely as if it had been erased from existence. As the task force finally began to disperse, Inho stood alone on his bridge, staring out at the stars. For the first time in his career, he had encountered something that made him question the Empire's supremacy. These humans, whoever they were, possessed technology that made Imperial science look like the crude tools of savages. The most disturbing part wasn't their ability to disappear. It was their complete lack of fear. They had appeared in the middle of an Imperial battle fleet, calmly stated their business, and departed without showing any concern for the massive firepower arrayed against them. It was the attitude of a species so technologically superior that they viewed the Empire's threats as nothing more than primitive posturing. As the Dominator set course back to Imperial command, Inho couldn't shake the feeling that they had just made first contact with something far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. The age of Imperial dominance was about to come to an end, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. The Imperial Palace on Centaurus Prime had never seen such fury. Emperor Wujin stood in his war room, his fists clenched as he stared at the holographic reports floating before him. The ornate chamber, decorated with trophies from 100 conquered worlds, seemed to pulse with his rage. Ancient alien artifacts lined the walls, remnants of civilizations that had dared to challenge the Empire and paid the ultimate price. Today, those trophies felt like mockeries. 3 separate task forces, the Emperor snarled, his voice echoing off the marble walls. "Our finest ships, our best commanders, and these humans treat us like children playing with toys." Fleet Admiral Kung Su stood at attention beside the massive tactical display, his weathered face grim. Behind him, a dozen of the Empire's highest-ranking officers waited in tense silence. The room's advanced holographic systems showed real-time positions of every Imperial vessel across their territory, a web of military might that had taken decades to build. Your Majesty, Kung Su began carefully, perhaps we should consider diplomacy. Wu Jin whirled around, his ceremonial robes billowing dramatically. These aliens appear in our space without permission, ignore our warnings, and vanish whenever we try to respond. There will be no negotiation with beings who show such disrespect to the Empire. The Emperor activated the main display, showing the sleek outline of the mysterious human vessel alongside technical specifications of their own fleet. The size comparison was almost insulting. Their smallest cruiser was twice the size of the alien ship, yet somehow the humans had made their most advanced warships look obsolete. Summon the Grand Fleet, Wu Jin commanded, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. Every available vessel. I want overwhelming force brought to bear on these intruders. Admiral Kung Su's eyes widened. Your Majesty, the Grand Fleet hasn't been assembled since the Outer Rim Rebellion 15 years ago. Are you certain? I am certain that the pride of the Galactic Empire will not be mocked by unknown aliens, the Emperor declared. These humans will learn what happens when they defy the greatest military force in the galaxy. Over the next 72 hours, the largest military buildup in Imperial history took place. Warships from across the Empire converged on the Kepler system like metallic sharks drawn to blood. The massive planet-killer dreadnought Eternal Dominion led the formation. Its 5-kilometer length bristling with enough weapons to sterilize entire star systems. Behind it came wave after wave of battlecruisers, destroyers, frigates, and support vessels. Captain Menesio commanded the heavy destroyer squadron from the bridge of her flagship Iron Thunder. She had served in the Imperial Navy for 23 years, participating in campaigns that had brought dozens of worlds under Imperial control. But as she watched the Grand Fleet assemble, she felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold of space. Captain, her tactical officer reported, final count shows 207 vessels in formation. Combined firepower exceeds anything we've ever deployed. Menesia nodded, but her expression remained troubled. And yet I can't shake the feeling that we're walking into a trap. The Grand Fleet arranged itself in a perfect sphere around the coordinates where the human vessel was predicted to appear. Battle cruisers formed the outer shell, their massive guns trained inward. Heavy destroyers created a second layer of defense, while frigates and corvettes filled the gaps. At the center of this deadly formation sat the Eternal Dominion, its planet-killing weapons ready to turn the mysterious vessel into atomic particles. Emperor Wu Jin had taken personal command from the dreadnought's massive bridge, a cathedral-like space that could house a small city. Hundreds of officers worked at stations arranged in terrace levels, their voices creating a constant hum of military efficiency. The main view screen showed the empty space where their target would appear, surrounded by the greatest concentration of firepower the galaxy had ever seen. All ships report ready status, announced Fleet Admiral Kung Su from his position at the tactical center. Weapons charged, shields at maximum, fighters deployed. The target will have nowhere to run. Perfect. Wu Jin smiled coldly. When that ship appears, I wanted to see the full might of the Empire before we erase it from existence. At exactly 1347 hours, the human ship materialized in the center of their formation. The vessel appeared as suddenly as always. But this time, every eye in the Grand Fleet was watching. It hung motionless in space, seemingly oblivious to the overwhelming force surrounding it. The ship's strange hull continued to play tricks with light, creating an almost hypnotic effect that made it difficult to focus on directly. Target acquired, shouted the weapons officer. All systems locked on. Emperor Wu Jin stood from his command throne, his voice carrying across not just the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, but to every ship in the fleet via open communication channels. Attention, human vessel. You are surrounded by the might of the Galactic Empire. 200 warships have you in their sights. Surrender immediately or face complete annihilation. The response came through their communication systems with the same calm authority they had heard before. Emperor Wu Jin, we cannot comply with your demand. We respectfully request that you stand down and allow us to depart peacefully. The audacity of the response sent murmurs of shock through the assembled fleet. No one had ever spoken to the Emperor with such casual dismissal, especially while surrounded by enough firepower to level a planet. How dare you, Wu Jin roared, his face flushing with rage. You face the combined might of 200 Imperial warships. I am offering you one final chance to surrender before we demonstrate why the galaxy fears our power. We understand your position, Emperor, the human voice replied, still maddeningly calm. However, we must decline your offer. Our mission requires us to depart. Wu Jin's control finally snapped. Fire, all ships. Turn that vessel into atoms. The order echoed across 200 bridges as thousands of weapons officers prepared to unleash destruction on a scale rarely seen in galactic history. Particle cannons charged to maximum power, missile tubes armed with antimatter warheads, and the Eternal Dominion's planet killer weapon began its firing sequence. But nothing happened. Instead of the brilliant light show of massed weapons fire, the Grand Fleet was plunged into an eerie silence. Every weapon system in the Armada simply stopped working. Particle cannons that had been charging for minutes suddenly showed zero power. Missile tubes remained sealed. The planet killer weapons targeting system went dark. Sir, the weapons officer called out in panic. All weapons systems are offline. I'm showing complete power failure across all offensive systems. The situation rapidly grew worse. Main engines throughout the fleet began shutting down, leaving massive warships drifting helplessly through space. Life support systems flickered ominously, causing emergency lighting to activate on dozens of ships. Communication arrays went dead, cutting off contact between vessels that had been coordinating perfectly moments before. Captain Minesio watched in horror from the bridge of the Iron Thunder as her proud destroyer transformed into a powerless hulk. Engineering, report, she demanded. Captain, it's impossible, came the reply. Every system is shutting down in sequence, but there's no external interference we can detect. It's like the ship is turning itself off. Across the Grand Fleet, the same scene played out on 200 bridges. The Empire's finest vessels, each one a masterpiece of military engineering, had been reduced to drifting metal coffins in a matter of seconds. Emergency power kept life support functioning, but everything else was dead. Emperor Wu Jin stood frozen on his command throne, unable to comprehend what had just happened. The Eternal Dominion, a ship capable of cracking planets, was as helpless as a child's toy. Around him, his officers worked frantically at their stations, trying to restore power to systems that refused to respond. The human voice cut through the terrifying silence like a blade. This concludes our demonstration. Your fleet is no longer a threat to peaceful exploration vessels. We have not harmed any of your personnel, but we have rendered your weapons inoperative. Please consider our next transmission carefully. The words hit Wu Jin like physical blows. In less than 30 seconds, beings he had never heard of had accomplished something that should have been impossible. They had neutralized the greatest military force in galactic history without firing a single shot. He whispered, the word barely audible in the vast silence of his crippled flagship. As if responding to his question, the human vessel began to move. It drifted slowly through the formation of powerless warships, passing within meters of several vessels. Through the viewports, thousands of Imperial personnel watched in stunned silence as the alien craft performed a leisurely inspection of their fleet. They're studying us, Admiral Kung Su said quietly. Learning everything about our ships, our weapons, our capabilities. The human vessel completed its circuit of the Grand Fleet, then returned to its original position. For a moment, it hung motionless in space, as if considering its next move. When it finally spoke again, the voice carried a weight that sent chills through every person who heard it. Your demonstration of force has been noted and evaluated. We will be in contact soon to discuss the future relationship between our peoples. Until then, your systems will remain functional for defensive purposes only. The ship vanished as suddenly as it had appeared, leaving behind 200 crippled warships and the shattered remains of Imperial pride. Emperor Wu Jin collapsed into his command throne, finally understanding that the age of the Empire was over. The silence that followed the human ship's demonstration was unlike anything the Imperial fleet had ever experienced. 200 warships drifted through space like ancient monuments to a forgotten age, their mighty engines cold and their weapons powerless. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows across bridge after bridge as thousands of Imperial personnel sat in stunned disbelief. Emperor Wu Jin gripped the armrests of his command throne so tightly his knuckles had turned white. The massive bridge of the Eternal Dominion was filled with the quiet sounds of officers attempting to restore systems that refused to respond. The ship that had once been capable of destroying entire planets now couldn't even fire a warning shot. Suddenly, every screen in the Grand Fleet flickered to life simultaneously. communication arrays that had been dead moments before suddenly blazed with activity. The face that appeared on their displays was unlike anything they had expected. Human was male, appearing to be in his 40s, with distinctly Asian features that somehow reminded the imperial officers of their own people. His dark hair was neatly trimmed, and his eyes held a mixture of intelligence and compassion that was both comforting and terrifying. He wore a simple blue uniform with no visible rank, insignia, or military decorations. "I am Captain Lee Min of the Terran Exploration Consortium," he began, his voice carrying icily across the void to every ship in the fleet. "We represent Earth and 47 allied species under human protection." The words hit the Imperial command structure like physical blows. 47 allied species. The Empire had conquered 43 star systems over decades of brutal warfare, enslaving entire civilizations in the process. These humans spoke casually of protecting nearly 50 different alien races. Captain Minho's image was crystal clear, despite being transmitted across space from a ship they couldn't even detect on sensors. Behind him, they could see glimpses of the human vessel's bridge, clean lines, softly glowing displays, and other figures moving with quiet efficiency. It looked more like a research laboratory than a military command center. "Your empire has been under observation for several years," Captain Minho continued, his tone remaining conversational despite the gravity of his words. "What you interpreted as random survey missions was actually a comprehensive evaluation, not of your military capabilities, but of your intentions toward other species." Emperor Wujin felt his blood run cold. Years of observation, everything they had done, every military campaign, every conquered world, it had all been watched and recorded by beings they never even knew existed. The human captain's expression grew more serious, though his voice remained calm. "Your expansion, through conquest, your subjugation of peaceful worlds, and your systematic threat to developing civilizations, has marked your empire as a danger to galactic stability." Fleet Admiral Kung Su leaned close to the Emperor's throne, his voice barely a whisper. "Sir, how is this possible? Our technology is centuries advanced beyond anything we've encountered. We've conquered species across half the galaxy." As if he could hear across the vacuum of space itself, Captain Minho turned his attention directly toward the Eternal Dominion. "Your technology is impressive by local standards, Admiral Kung Su. However, humanity achieved interstellar travel through cooperation rather than conquest. We learned that true advancement comes from unity, not domination." The fact that the human could hear private conversations from across space sent chills through every person in the fleet. "What other capabilities did these beings possess?" "Your species developed impressive weapons and powerful starships," Min continued, "but you focused so heavily on military might that you neglected the sciences of cooperation, understanding, and peaceful coexistence. While you were building bigger guns, we were building better relationships." Emperor Wujin found his voice, though it came out as barely more than a croak. What do you want from us?" Captain Minho smiled, and for a moment his expression was almost fatherly. "The answer is quite simple, Emperor. We want you to stop hurting people." The words were so straightforward, so basic, that they hit harder than any military threat could have. After decades of thinking in terms of strategic advantages and military dominance, the concept of simply not causing harm seemed almost alien. "Cease all military expansion immediately," Minho explained. "Transition from conquest to peaceful exploration and trade. Release all subjugated worlds within one standard year and allow them to choose their own governments. In return, we offer technological exchange, protection from external threats, and membership in the Galactic Cooperative." "The Galactic Cooperative?" Admiral Kung Su asked. "A coalition of species that have chosen cooperation over competition," Minho replied. "Currently comprising over 300 worlds across 47 different species. Each maintains their cultural identity and planetary sovereignty while contributing to collective defense and shared scientific advancement." Emperor Wu's mind reeled. 300 worlds working together voluntarily, compared to his 43 conquered through force. "And if we refuse?" he asked, though he dreaded the answer. Captain Minho's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. "Then we will systematically disable every military installation in your empire. Your choice is simple: evolve or become irrelevant." The threat was delivered without anger or malice, simply as a statement of fact. It was perhaps the most terrifying thing Wujin had ever heard. "You've demonstrated that you can defend yourselves," Minho continued. "What you haven't yet learned is that the strongest civilizations are those that don't need to." The transmission began to fade, and Captain Minho's image started to shimmer. We'll give you time to consider our offer. The decision is yours to make. Wait. Emperor Wujin called out desperately, rising from his throne. How do we contact you? How do we begin negotiations? Captain Minho's voice echoed one final time across the void. When you're ready for peace, simply stop preparing for war. We'll know. The human vessel began to fade from view, becoming translucent like a ghost. But before it vanished completely, something extraordinary happened. Throughout the Grand Fleet, systems began coming back online. Engines hummed to life, life support systems stabilized, and communication arrays restored full functionality. However, the weapons remained offline. Sir, the tactical officer reported from his station. All defensive and life support systems are operational, but offensive weapons are still non-functional. It was a clear message. The humans had the power to destroy them completely, but chose, instead, to leave them defenseless only against offensive action. They could protect themselves, return home, and care for their crews. But they could no longer threaten others. Emperor Wujin collapsed back into his command throne, staring at the empty space where the human ship had been. Around him, his officers worked to restore full fleet operations, but their voices seemed to come from very far away. For the first time in his reign, Wujin truly understood the magnitude of his empire's actions. Seen through the eyes of these advanced humans, the imperial expansion wasn't glorious conquest, it was systematic bullying of weaker civilizations. Your orders, sir? Admiral Kungsu asked quietly. Wujin looked out at the stars, seeing them differently now. Somewhere out there, 300 worlds worked together in peace, protected by beings so advanced that they could end wars simply by turning off the weapons. Set course for home, he said finally, and cancel all planned military operations. Sir, we have a lot to think about, Admiral, and apparently, we have a choice to make. As the Grand Fleet began its journey back to Imperial space, every person aboard had been fundamentally changed by their encounter with humanity. They had come expecting to demonstrate their superiority and instead discovered their own insignificance. The age of the Empire was over. The age of cooperation was about to begin. The end.